school board officials are calling for help tonight.
You f***ing cowards!
Following increasingly violent incidents like this in Minnesota. A man complimenting school board members during a debate over masks, who's then charged by an unmasked man. Writing to President Biden, the National School Boards Association asked for help investigating the violent incidents and suggested the FBI monitor threats to board members, likening these heinous actions to domestic terrorism.
The impact of the pandemic on public schools is creating all this heightened rhetoric.
The FBI, with the full support from their faithful lapdogs in the mainstream media, is now coming after Patriot parents. But it's not going to work. In this video, we're going to take a look at the latest attempt by Bumblin Biden and the deep state to silence parents concerned over the state of their schools. We're going to take a look at what's really behind the rank hypocrisy and double standards of our justice system. And stick with me to the very end of this video, where I'll show you why it's all doomed to fail. You're not gonna want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. I'm your daily fake news antidote, offering patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, are you looking to get a loan but don't quite know which personal loan to get for your situation? Well, that's where our sponsors, Zippy Loan, come in to help. Zippy Loan offers an expansive network of lenders that provides you with premium access to the personal loans you need. All you got to do is just click on the link below and you can get up to $15,000 directly deposited in your bank account as soon as the next day. Give them a try by clicking on that link below or go to getazippyloan.com. That's getazippyloan.com. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We do have a very ominous development going on with Bumblin Biden and the FBI. I'm sure many of you have heard about this. As you know, and we've reported on this many, many times, school boards across the nation are actually being held accountable by the parents and the taxpayers that fund their salaries and the school facilities. And in particular, patriot parents are rising up against the teaching of CRT or critical race theory that's being shoved into school curricula across the board, as well as things like vax mandates, mask mandates, and the like. And as we have reported, some of these school board meetings certainly can get pretty hostile without question. But now we're seeing a very ominous development here with Bumblin Biden and the deep state. Fox News is reporting that the Department of Justice is launching an all-out effort to combat what they're saying is an increase in threats of violence against school officials and teachers all across the country. Christopher Rufo posted on his Twitter the official statement released by Attorney General Merrick Garland, who has instructed the FBI to mobilize against parents who oppose critical race theory being taught in their schools. They're now considered by the federal government as legitimate threats to the safety and well-being of teachers and administrators. Now, this act is in response to a request by the National School Boards Association. Wait, stop. Why does even an organization like that exist? Are we truly this addicted to an administrative state? Why do we even have a National School Boards Association in the first place? You know why. This is the answer. It's to protect school boards from you. That's why. Sorry, I'll continue. Yes, this National School Boards Association apparently requested that the Patriot Act, I kid you not, the Patriot Act, be enforced against threatening parents who this National School Boards Association now claim are domestic terrorists. You do realize that these far leftist administrative state is going to put Babylon Bee out of business, right? You know, the satirical site, the Babylon Bee. I mean, it's not funny anymore. The world is becoming pure satire. The left is now asking the federal government to deploy FBI agents against patriot parents who are showing up to school board meetings demanding that their officials represent them and their values rather than rule them. And Biden and the Attorney General lackey are saying, okay, we'll do that. Matt Walsh, I think, spoke for a lot of us when he tweeted out, leftist activists can come to your house with bullhorns, film you in the bathroom, loot your business, burn police stations. The FBI does nothing. But if conservative parents raise their voices at a school board meeting, as, by the way, Matt Walsh has himself recently done, well, then They're hunted down as terrorists. The law is dead. Matt Walsh makes a darn good point there, don't he? I mean, after all, we all saw with our own eyes the shocking level of destruction and looting and violence inherent in all of the race riots that enveloped our nation's cities a year ago last summer. But we also saw the equally, if not more shocking move by Democrat mayors and city councils who deliberately abdicated their law enforcement responsibilities and not only allowed the rioting and the looting, but actually defended it. And I would argue by implication they encouraged it. How many people went to prison in the aftermath of those fiery but mostly peaceful protests? And after all that looting and destruction, what precisely did the FBI do? We need to ask, as Tucker Carlson has been asking of late, what precisely is the FBI doing besides spying on law-abiding American citizens? What really is going on here? Well, unfortunately, I think we all know the answer to this. What Biden and the Democrats are doing here is something scholars refer to as weaponized legalism. Okay, that's the technical term for the politicization of the law. Weaponized legalism. A weaponized legal regime, which is what we live in now thanks to the Democrats, uses the law to deliberately undermine their political opponents, strengthen themselves and their allies, and use the law to show off their power to threaten and intimidate. And that's precisely what the Democratic Party has become. They've become a weaponized legal regime that uses the law as a political weapon. So, for example, Democrats care nothing about enforcing immigration law at the southern border, but they care everything about vaccine passports and mandates. They didn't give a rip about their law enforcement responsibilities during the whole George Floyd riots over the summer, but they're now suddenly the great defenders of the nation against these January 6th insurrections. You see, this is weaponized legalism. It's the intentional use of the law to persecute your political opponents and intimidate everyone else, all the while securing your own position of power. But of course, President Trump, his supporters, patriot parents were hardly intimidated by this. In fact, we've seen nothing less than a massive shift among members of law enforcement, particularly sheriffs across the nation, who are leaving behind the Democrats once and for all and becoming patriot Republicans, ready to protect concerned parents rather than members of the permanent political class. Back in June, the anti-police rhetoric on the left was it's just way too much for 3 Democrat sheriffs of Virginia to take, so they officially switched parties. Another sheriff in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, he announced that he officially cut ties with the Democratic Party and joined the GOP. The Democrat sheriff of the largest county in Indiana just announced that he's switching parties. And just days before that, in Posey County, Indiana, the sheriff there announced his switch to the GOP. Same thing with sheriffs in Hamilton County, Ohio, and Tazewell County, West Virginia. I mean, are you seeing a pattern here? And moreover, you have places like Hood County, Texas, just outside of Fort Worth, where their constables in Texas are akin to sheriffs. Their constable of Hood County, he's a proud and very open member of the Oath Keepers, which is one of the growing number of major national patriot militias. And he's not alone. There are actually several Oath Keepers who hold office in Hood County, particularly law enforcement office. All of this is to say that while we are indeed seeing some really concerning things coming from the weaponized legalism of the FBI, it's all happening at the same time as a very real and very massive shift, a major political paradigm shift, is happening, particularly at local levels, when law enforcement is beginning to rebel against this weaponized legalism that we're seeing emerge in the deep state in D.C. as well as in our rotting urban areas. They want nothing to do with it. And it'll be interesting to see the extent to which these sheriffs and local law enforcement officials will be able to create an effective legal and administrative wall between the citizens of their counties and the newly weaponized FBI. We'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop there, but regardless, we can be sure that patriot parents won't soon be intimidated by an increasingly comical FBI or a farcical justice system. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on the latest from the Arizona audit. We now have nearly 100 lawmakers openly calling for the decertification of the vote. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.